What is this skin condition and how do you treat it? Little hint, it's not acne, and depending on the strain, it could actually be deadly. You don't want to confuse this for a breakout. So let's get into the characteristics and what this actually is. This is a condition that looks kind of like acne. It has these pussy things, but sometimes they look a little bit more like boils. They happen in little globular formations and might happen more around open wounds. They are generally a lot more painful than acne and spread much quicker. Also, they are resistant to any acne treatments, such as benzoyl peroxide, salicylic acid, or something you might use over the counter. In addition, they tend to appear in pretty strange places, such as the crook of the elbow, the back of the knee, or elsewhere on the body, whereas acne normally happens on the face, the chest, or the back. So what is this condition? This isn't acne. This is a staph infection, and there's actually many different types, some of which are extremely deadly. Staph, formerly known as Staphylococcus, is actually found all over the skin, and it's pretty normal to have in the orifices of our face, such as our eyes, our nose, our mouth, our skin, etc. The problem depends on the strain of staph bacteria, and if that staph becomes a staph infection, especially if it enters the bloodstream. Now, a staph infection is just that. It is an infection that needs to be treated with antibiotics. It will be resistant to pretty much anything over the counter. Have you ever heard of MRSA? M-R-S-A. It's a classification of staph bacteria that is deadly. And one of the main reasons that it is so potent is because it is resistant to antibiotics. Antibiotics can be used in the treatment of acne because antibiotics help to kill bacteria, but antibiotics are almost always used for major infections. The scary thing about MRSA is that this is a strain that has developed in order to be resistant to most antibiotics. Some of these staph infections can be confused as breakouts because they tend to look similar in the sense that they're red, they're inflamed, sometimes they're a little bit pussy too. But there are some remarkable differences that you might want to keep an eye out for, such as staph infections are usually a bit more pussy, and even if you don't pop them, they tend to ooze. They might also be open wounds. These are also much more painful and tend to spread much quicker. Now, where would somebody get an infection like this? If you have spent recent time in a hospital, if you've gotten a blood transfusion, or if you have been around areas that disease is a little bit more spread, or even in gym locker rooms, sometimes this happens because there's a nice, warm, moist, wet environment where this bacteria can live. Those are some common places that might be a risk factor for contraction. Now, how do you treat a staph infection or a MRSA infection? This is where you don't want to wait. If you think that you have a staph infection or MRSA, you should go to a doctor immediately. There are no over-the-counter treatments, and it's because of how fast-moving, fast-developing, and dangerous these can be. They are also highly contagious from both person to person and on different surfaces. These need to be treated by a doctor, and again, depending on the form, it could be something like penicillin or amoxicillin, some of these antibiotics, but if it is MRSA, again, MRSA is generally resistant to most, if not all, strains of antibiotics, and so other measures need to be taken. There are no over-the-counter treatments, and this is one that you do not want to mess around with. If you wanted to do something proactive, march your butt to the doctor's office. Don't even wait to see a dermatologist. Go to an ER or to an emergency clinic to get this checked out immediately. The way they usually do this is by a swab or a culture, but most doctors can diagnose just by looking at the open wound. The other scary thing about MRSA is that even if you're able to overcome the outbreak, a lot of times it stays dormant, either in the blood or elsewhere in the body, which means that it could flare up at other times if your immune system is compromised. This is also why it's important to exercise regularly, get your blood flowing, make sure that you're eating a healthy diet, trying to manage your stress as much as you can, and find the enjoyment in life or focus on the positive. And the reason why is because a compromised immune system is more prone to flare-ups and issues. And the healthier your immune system is, the better off you'll be when it comes to fighting infections or the possibility of them. My mom actually once had a staph infection scare. It was on the back of her knee. Again, these staph infections kind of like to hang out in like the elbow crooks or the back of the knee or the armpits or even behind the ears, and it's because there's not a lot of circulation there, there's a lot of moisture, and my mom's was like this big open gaping wound that had these little bumps around the side, and thank God it was not MRSA, but we were really afraid that it was. Hers was treatable with antibiotics, and usually if you catch MRSA or another staph infection in time, you can prevent them from being deadly. But again, you don't want to spread this to other people or on surfaces to other people. You don't want to play around with it. I hope you enjoyed learning about this slightly scary but very relevant and important skin issue, and I hope that you feel a little bit empowered by understanding this knowledge, so that if you ever get something that looks a little questionable or somebody else talks to you about something that they're experiencing that's a little bit questionable, you can help yourself or them get to the professionals and the treatment that they need. Give this video a like if you enjoy these types of videos. If you don't, give it a dislike, because that's valuable feedback for me too. And if you're new here, hit subscribe so you don't miss future uploads and you can join the butterfly family. I love you guys so much, and remember that knowledge is power. Always be beautiful inside and out, and I cannot wait to see you in the next video. Love you guys. Bye.